Good evening and welcome to another edition of Jaime's Take. Tonight's edition is Understanding the New York City Rental Market. So if you're looking for an apartment right now, you are certainly doing it in a very interesting and challenging time. February's data is in, and that indicates that rents are rising, particularly consistently in doorman buildings. In New York, in Manhattan, we had 4,400 active rental listings in the month of February, which is down 9% from January, and which is down 87% from this time last year. I cannot stress this enough that inventory is at a very low rate. In fact, we're seeing rates of 1.7% at the moment. This varies by neighborhood. And the neighborhoods with the least visible vacancy are the Upper East Side, Soho, Soho. You're going to see that as well in the Upper West Side and the West Village. So when you request these neighborhoods, you can pretty much expect the average rent to be greater there. So what are landlords really looking for? When you fill out a rental application in New York City, you're going to be required to present the following items. You're going to present usually your ID, but you're going to present your most recent, usually 3 pay stubs, your most recent taxes. Usually the first 2 pages is sufficient unless they ask for more. You're going to show a letter of employment that states your earnings, your title, and your duration there. And for your bank statements, one of the things they're most going to be looking for is not only do you have enough to cover the rent and the deposit, but they're looking also to see that your pay stubs also match your checking account. So when you do submit bank statements, make sure they're the ones in which your pay is deposited. This way it kind of verifies your job even more with the addition of the work letter. So landlords are looking for 2 other benchmarks. They're looking for you to make 40 times the rent and to have credit 700 or higher. If an apartment is $2,000, then you need to gross $80K a year. They want that to be in your salary and should not include your commissions or bonuses. Those typically don't get given much consideration by landlords because they have a tendency to be somewhat conditional. If you do not have 700 credit and 40 times the rent in earnings per annum of the rent, you're going to need a guarantor. And I've discussed guarantors, third party and regular, in one of my other videos. But as a general rule, your guarantor is going to need to make 80 times the rent. In some cases, a little higher. I know one landlord that does 100 times the rent, and they're going to have good credit of 700 and above as well. Right now, because of the competitiveness, I recommend that you show all accounts that show financial strength and stability. If you have a portfolio, offer it up. You can take off some of the digits of your account number, but it should clearly still state your name and be clearly yours. I recommend that anybody who's submitting documents right now, they should present the ones that put them in the best light. And so if you can show greater financial strength beyond the regular checking statement, I highly recommend that you show it. What type of rental application you'll do will depend on what kind of building and apartment you're looking at. In New York City, we have plenty of regular rentals that you'll have a standard rental lease, but there's plenty of buildings that are condos and co-ops. Look carefully at those when you're looking, for instance, at listings on websites. When it's a condo or a co-op, you're gonna encounter that the unit is owned by usually one person, and you're gonna do an application that is for that one person. And you're going to want to demonstrate the greatest financial strength you can. There's going to be other people competing with you in that department. And the owner is going to choose the most qualified one or that appeals to them the most, and that will become their tenant. If that person is you, then you're going to move on to a secondary portion of the application that includes the requirements of the building. So you're going to see perhaps a widened number of requirements. Now there'll be some reference letters. There'll be, a second year of taxes and W-2s required of you. So the broadened expectations do take more work. And typically, if you've never done this before, you're probably going to want an agent on your side. When it comes to acceptances and rejectances in these buildings, being rejected or accepted, in condos, once an owner has approved of you and you've gone through with an application, for the vast majority, you can expect to be approved by the building. And that's based on the type of ownership in a condo. As opposed to a co-op where subletting may be more limited, you're going to face a more stringent board, probably a slightly even more stringent application, and the possibility of a rejection. So be aware of what type of building you're applying to. Realize that in co-ops and condos, it's a much more protracted event. Boards meet once a month. So do not expect to try and go into a condo or co-op building and move in 2 weeks. You're going to have to wait, 2 or 3 or 4 weeks for a board to meet and actually give approval for your rental. So have that in mind. What do landlords do with applications? That's a very mysterious question, and I've seen it done many ways by different people. Some of your typical landlords, when inventory is high and there's plenty of apartments available, they'll take the first application that's qualified and completed. When there's very low inventory, landlords have the ability to really compare and contrast applications and choose the one, because there are many, that presents them with the least financial risk, perhaps of eviction or damage in terms of renting to you. So under these conditions, landlords have a tendency to compare applications that come in within a certain time window or near each other. Once again, that would compel you to want to strengthen your application as much as possible. Something else I've noticed that landlords have been taking very seriously lately is providing a guarantor even when you are qualified. I've even seen a landlord do it in selecting for a bunch of applications. The people were generally qualified. They made 40 times the rent and 700 credit. And one applicant in particular had a strong guarantor and supplied it with the application. This person then presented the least amount of risk, and the owner selected that applicant. So it's almost an extra backup now, but to strengthen your application with that, I highly recommend volunteering that now if you are really trying your best and not succeeding. Landlords will choose, as a general rule, the app with the greatest financial strength, but there's certain things that they see too. For instance, if they see roommates compared to a single person, they may see a different amount of risk with those different situations. If one of the 3 roommates leaves and the other 2 can't handle it based on these finances we see here, that group would be more risky than perhaps the one person, who has a good amount of money in the bank and has a strong job, and they can see from the tax returns that that person's been working there for a few years. That person would be less of a risk. So you're going to want to bear some of these things in mind when you're going head to head with other applications. It still is a mysterious process. Something else I'm going to recommend in this market is if you have the opportunity and it's within your means to bid higher on an apartment you truly want, then you should do so from the get-go. You should come out swinging. I see this far too often that people put in these paltry little bids of $25 higher on the rent. This is not going to impress the landlord, and it's not going to separate you from the crowd. And it also has a tendency to make it look like $25 is a big deal to you. That is not the impression or smoke signal you want to give off to a landlord when you're desperate, that you're hoping that your application is the one that is the selected one. So if you really feel that the apartment, which is priced at $2,700, in your eyes really it's not a problem for you at $2,900, then offer that out at the get-go. Little paltry bids only encourage other people to bid too and to jack it up. So you might as well come out and offer what you're going to offer. That being said, I'm really rooting for you guys out there right now. I had 2 exclusives I did in this last week, and one of them I showed for 2.5 hours, and in the half an hour it took me to get back to my office, we had 4 complete applications. That's how tough it is right now. So I highly recommend, if you can have an agent by your side, I recommend that you do. Landlords like to see applications that are well organized and from agents. And that's especially true in condos and co-ops. Having a well-prepared application really matters. It could delay your whole application a month should it be rejected in a co-op, incomplete. So there's a lot of things to avoid there and a lot of reasons to at least garner some of the advice of a hardworking real estate agent. So I hope that you took something away from this today. I would love to hear from you in the comments about your experiences or questions you may have. Please do. I'm always looking forward to that. And for now, that's it for tonight. And have a look at my other videos. Like and subscribe.